Good afternoon. It's Sunday, May 7th. I'm Aryeh O'Sullivan, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Visiting German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier toured the Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial today and said, "We, the Germans, have brought upon ourselves an unthinkable guilt." Standing at the Hall of Remembrance, Steinmeier said, "Here in this place, memory becomes pain, sorrow, and shame. While taking responsibility for what happened, we stand by Israel and work for a common future." Steinmeier is scheduled to meet later today with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and also President Reuven Rivlin. The presidents actually met informally last night, and Steinmeier asked to be taken to Jerusalem's lively Machane Yehuda market, where they spoke with revelers in pubs, residents, and artists, and viewed the market's infamous graffiti images sprayed on the fronts of produce stores. The visit comes less than 2 weeks after the Prime Minister canceled a meeting with German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel after the latter met with representatives of NGOs Breaking the Silence, Peace Now, and B'Tselem. The German president has no plans to meet with these NGOs during his visit. U.S. President Donald Trump is coming to Israel in 2 weeks, and thousands of security personnel will be deployed in and around the capital to secure his 2-day visit. Starting May 2nd, Trump will arrive in Jerusalem directly from Saudi Arabia and will stay at the King David Hotel. He will be accompanied by his wife, Melania, and his daughter, Ivanka, and son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Members of the American team were dispatched here to organize the president's trip, and they reportedly met with Israeli officials and visited the Western Wall, the Allenby Bridge, border crossing, and Masada, where unconfirmed reports suggest that President Trump is reportedly planning to deliver his speech. A statement issued by the White House said the president's visit is aimed at further strengthening the U.S.-Israeli partnership. During his visit to Israel, Trump will meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, President Reuven Rivlin, as well as Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. When he leaves Israel, it will be straight to Italy, where he is scheduled to meet with the Pope Francis and then continue to Brussels to attend the NATO summit. Former Hamas Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh has been elected as the new leader of the terrorist organization's political bureau. His posting was announced by outgoing political chief Khalid Mashal yesterday, who added that the names of other Hamas officials appointed to lead the group will be announced in the near future. The 54-year-old Haniyeh, who lives in the El Shati refugee camp in northern Gaza, is expected to remain in the Gaza Strip, unlike his predecessor, Mashal, who lived in exile in Doha while serving as the organization's political chief for 10 years. The Israel Prison Service's crack Masada unit is preparing for the possibility that it may be called in to intervene ongoing Palestinian security prisoner strikes if the situation deteriorates in Israeli jails. The crack unit held an exercise for Minister of Public Security Gilad Erdan last week, who met with the unit and senior prison service officials. Established 14 years ago, the unit is trained to deal with emergency situations such as riot control inside prisons, thwart attempted escapes, and possible hostage-taking situations. Some 800 Palestinian security prisoners are continuing their hunger strike called over 2 weeks ago. Last week, the health ministry instructed the country's hospitals to prepare for the possibility that dozens of Palestinian prisoners may be brought in for treatment if the strike persists. Approximately 6,500 Palestinian security prisoners are incarcerated in Israeli jails, with only a small fraction, mainly affiliated with the Fatah, adhering to the strike. A false color red alert, or Tseva Adom, was sounded this morning in the Eshkol Region Council, sending hundreds of Israelis scurrying to the shelters. No blast was heard, and it was determined shortly afterwards that it was a false alarm. The reason for the siren is being checked. Prime Minister Netanyahu was quick to respond to allegations made by Zionist Union MK Mickey Rosenthal yesterday, who claimed that police intend to file charges against the Prime Minister in one of the ongoing probes against him. After months of police leaks saying they recommend an indictment, does anyone imagine they will have the courage to get off their high horse and admit that there is nothing, a statement released by Netanyahu said. Speaking at Shabbat Tarbut in Modi'in yesterday, Rosenthal said Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit has yet to decide whether to accept police recommendations to file charges against Netanyahu. One of the 2 investigations against Netanyahu conducted by police concerned expensive gifts he and his wife allegedly received from U.S.-Israeli movie mogul Arnon Michelin and Australian billionaire James Packer. A new deal aimed at reducing violence in Syria is now in effect, but it remains unclear how long the ceasefire will hold. Already yesterday, amateur footage released on the internet claimed to show rocket and barrel bomb attacks on Syrian rebel forces in the Hama province. The latest deal signed on Thursday by Iran, Russia, and Turkey is the latest in a series of ceasefire proposals that have been initiated over the years since the outbreak of the civil war 7 years ago. This deal calls for the cessation of all hostilities between Syrian regime and rebel forces in 4 de-escalation zones, including the Idlib province, western areas of Aleppo, northern areas of Hama, the northern area of Homs, eastern Ghouta north of Damascus, and areas south near the Jordanian border, including the area of Quneitra, where sometimes gunfires can spill into Israel. In France today, the second round of the country's presidential elections kicked off to select a successor to French President François Hollande. Facing off against each other are centrist Emmanuel Macron and right-wing contender Marine Le Pen. After a tumultuous campaign filled with scandal and surprises, opinion polls indicate that Macron is likely to take the win with 62% of the vote against Le Pen with just 38%. Polling stations across France will come to a close at 9 p.m. our time, and results are expected minutes afterwards. In what may be the most decisive stage of the ongoing saga surrounding the public broadcast bill, a special Knesset Committee for Legislation, chaired by coalition head David Bitan, convened this morning to discuss the proposal to create an independent news division that will be separate from the Public Broadcasting Corporation, which is slated to begin operations on the 15th of May. The committee is set to conduct marathon debates in order to prepare the bill for its upcoming second and third readings on Wednesday. One of the proposals raised is to delay the launching of the IPBC by an additional 10 days. If that recommendation does not pass, the new corporation will launch within less than 2 weeks, and the existing Israel Broadcasting Authority will shut down, leading to the layoffs of some 1,000 IBA employees. Amid these ongoing discussions over public broadcasting, the fate of IBA English News remains on air. Despite the efforts to delay the start of the new public broadcaster and revise the law, there are still no plans to incorporate English news in any future programming. The IPBC has announced it does not intend to include English news in its programming, and it is far from certain that the independent broadcasting division will include television news in the English language as part of the revised law. We personally are trying to do everything we can to influence decision makers and stress the significance of continuing English television broadcast. If you wish to help us in this campaign, please take a few minutes to write down to the Economics Committee at the VKAL, K-A-L-A, at the Knesset.gov.il. Again, that is VKAL, K-A-L-A, at Knesset.gov.il. And together, we can maybe make a difference during this final stretch. To raise awareness for the plight of immigrants around the world and raise funds to alleviate their suffering, a group of international swimmers crossed the Pacific Ocean's invisible borderline between Mexico and the United States yesterday. Swimmers participating in the event were from a number of countries, including Israel, New Zealand, and South Africa. It took them 4 hours to cross from California's Imperial Beach to the shores of Tijuana. According to the United Nations, hunger and violence are the biggest drivers of global migration that has affected more than 65.3 million people worldwide.
We came all the way to show that we love, we care for humanity, and it is up to us, to humans, to take care of one another.
In finance, there was no change in the shekel with the currency markets closed for the weekend, and shares on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange were up in a day of light trading. Here are the late afternoon numbers. Looking at the weather, and it'll be next. That's all for this bulletin. I'm Ariel O'Sullivan. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same channel, with the latest news from Israel. Please tune in. And you can always find us online 24 hours a day at www.iba.org.il/world. Have a great evening, and shalom from Jerusalem.